What is up, guys? Four Corners back with another episode. I am your host, Ray. You can find me online at Rayvon Hackshaw. Got a good one for you today. We have a set of reinforcements worthy of All-Star Weekend, and I'm going to get us right into it because I'm sure we have a lot to talk about. Back from his voyage at sea, Peter, Bucket since 88. What's going on?
What's up, Ray? Life is good. Nuggets have won 8 in a row. Vibes are high. I do want to just get one thing out of the way, though. I need to apologize to Nuggets Nation. I haven't been very active in the podcast space this year. I'm sort of been like the Joel Embiid of Nuggets podcasters. You know, my availability is low, but when I do play, my performance is high. So I aim to keep it that way.
I thought you were going to apologize to the Suns fans, and I was a little shocked. But you course corrected.
Why would I apologize to the Suns fans?
Honestly, the longer this goes on, the more I just feel bad for them. But
you weren't a fan of the Nurkic salary dump?
We'll talk about it. I'm going to bring on Will Jones next. Will D Jones. _D _Jones on the
Twitter,
what is yeah, I'm trying to what is it's like a bucket of mud?
Yeah, that's a good word for it. I just started to call it X because I feel like Elon doesn't deserve credit for Twitter anymore. So
Twitter is dead. Twitter's dead. Yeah. I feel that, and I know you are on a bit of a hiatus. I think from tweeting.
Yeah,
but
it's good to moderate yourself and your online usage. But I have come back for Jamal's 50-point performance because that was like I had to do that, and I just tweeted some mean comments about the dunk contest. I had to get that in, and then. Couple of comments about this game that went on tonight, I guess. was super quick. Jokic's team won, though, for anyone who's live and watching this, so he's still alive.
All right.
You love to see it.
He's probably bummed. He's probably hoping he could go out and drink by now.
Yeah.
Go back to his horses. I don't know. I'm going to bring on Grace next, last but not least. Here, live from... I don't know. I don't know. You can out yourself if you want to. Or not.
Undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location.
Somewhere on vacation.
Yes. How are you? How are your narratives?
Oh my gosh, those are two very different questions. I'm doing okay. My narratives are also doing okay. Like Pete said, riding a bit high on the Nuggets narratives with the 8 wins in a row. It's pretty good. Jamal kind of coming back to life is very, very nice. In terms of my hate agendas, though, oh my gosh, right there with you, Pete. Like the Suns, DOA, the Sixers dead. They didn't even arrive. The Celtics are fine, right? They're the 2 seed in the East, but I had all these people telling me at the beginning of the year, like, how come the Celtics, they don't get championship hangover? Look how good they are to start the year. Look how good they look in preseason. Meanwhile, you go over to Celtics Twitter and they're freaking out because, they don't look as good, as sharp as they did last season. And things aren't coming as easy. It's a bit of a slog. It's a bit of a championship hangover. And it's like, it happens to everybody, as it turns out. So, I think my agendas are doing pretty well.
That's good. I feel pretty good about my agendas. I'm in a good spot. I'm feeling optimistic. Let's see. Where do we start? We say this often, I think, in the community that every Nugget is good. Will, I kind of want to start with you. Do you agree with or disagree with that statement?
Man, yeah, I think a week ago or so, I definitely would say no. But right now, it's like I can't even argue with it. I'm like, I mean, the trade deadline passed. We didn't even really do a huge reaction on it on our show yet because we didn't do anything, which is was expected. I think everyone who listens to Nuggets, journalists and podcasters, were also expecting that. So wasn't a surprise, but maybe a disappointment depending on how you felt about the team. Which, I mean, the Nuggets had given us proof of being bad, losing to bad teams. They've done games where they've looked really, really good. And there have been times where, I mean, Jamal was objectively looking better as of late. And, you know, he just had his 50-point game within this last week. Zeke's been playing more out of necessity with AG not playing. And so same with Mike, even though Mike's been really good. And I think I was just on the side of, we haven't really seen much from Zeke. And Malone isn't playing Pickett. He isn't playing Zeke, or Saric, which I know people criticize Malone for sometimes having a very shallow rotation, but I just was kind of trusting him that if he's not playing these guys, then he really must just not believe that they're ready to contribute. But here they are, kind of just being serviceable, and people are actually genuinely excited about Pickett, and Zeke is looking somewhat okay, and even with his defense and such. And it's like if we are just getting some nice solid minutes from them, then your outlook on the team, I think, does change a little bit. Even if they may not play in the playoffs, at least I know we can kind of get through the regular season and get like a 3 seed, which is all I really wanted. So I feel like I kind of have to agree that they're like all good right now.
Yes. My negatives, they're rising. No, it's okay. Okay,
No,
so
yeah.
Peter, I'll throw it to you. So kind of looking backwards from like the beginning of the season and some of the questions and concerns that we had about the team to now, what's something that give me something that you feel really good about, from among that bunch, and maybe something that you're less optimistic about in terms of how the Denver Nuggets are developing and growing and changing between the beginning of the season to what hopefully is a good playoff run.
Well, I think something I feel good about is the offense. I mean, the offense has been on fire lately. I think Murray has found his footing, and the 2-man game is back. So I kind of feel like even once they play better teams, Jokic is going to be able to get in his bag. Him and Murray are going to be able to, do what they usually do. It will be a little bit harder because you don't have KCP in the other corner with like the perfect spacing, but Mike's been really good. Aaron, I think, is still probably working his way back a little bit. Hopefully this week off is good for him. But, we've seen Christian Brown take a massive leap this year, and even if he hasn't become a volume 3-point shooter, he's playing really smart basketball. I think Christian Brown is like 6th all time in Nuggets history in field goal percentage, which as a guard is crazy. He's an extremely efficient player, even if he's not a elite floor spacer. And obviously Westbrook's been good. So the offense has been phenomenal, I think. I don't think that was really that much of a surprise, and then Strother, of course, has also gained a lot of confidence lately, coming in, hitting the shots, and I think the Pickett and the Zeke thing has been completely out of left field. That's been like a breath of fresh air. I'm still skeptical. I mean, we've been playing some pretty bad teams. The negative then obviously is, I'm going pretty broad here, but it's the defense. I'm still not convinced that this team can get stops when it needs to. I know Mike has said things like, teams really lock in after the All-Star break. So, maybe they'll get better defense. Or the other one I keep hearing is, well, Jokic can play harder in the playoffs. It's like, yeah, but you're also playing better teams. So I just don't know if the lack of screen navigator on this team versus the last couple of years if the offense is being good enough to overcome that. Because I don't see this being an elite defense. It could be like middle of the pack in the playoffs, but it's not going to be like a top 3 defense in the playoffs, I don't think.
Can I chime in on that real quick?
Yeah, I was just going to ask how you felt about that.
Yeah, so one of the things with the screen navigation issue is I have mostly fallen on the side of it's going to hurt us in like specific matchups, but there is this lingering thought in my head about how the lack of it also exposes other weaknesses in our defense because we are switching more. It's easier to hunt mismatches, hunt like ideal matchups for other good offensive players. And so, unlike last season, like I was really thinking back to last season and wondering, like, I don't really remember thinking for large chunks of last year, like, wow, Jamal's having an awesome defensive season. He just largely wasn't getting picked on except by literally the biggest guys in the league, right? This season, it feels like he's getting picked on more. And I think part of the reason for that is that we are switching more. We're just giving up those switches. We're giving them up easily right now. And I think that even without like an elite screen navigator, they should be providing more resistance to those things. But that's just one example. Another one is like last year, we were worried about Julian's defense, particularly one-on-one, but it just didn't come up as much. One, he wasn't playing quite as many minutes as he is now, not really even close, maybe like half the minutes that he's playing now. But the other thing is like team, like he's maybe higher up on the scouting report as a result, and teams are hunting him more, and we have to do more hedging with both him and Jamal on the floor. So that exposes that just leaves other things open as a result. That has nothing to do with their one-on-one defense, but the fact that we have to hide them more. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I do think that it is ultimately just going to hurt us the most in particular matchups where you have like elite pick and roll guards. That could really kill you. And the more I think about it, that there aren't a ton of those in the Western Conference at the top of the West anymore. But when you think about potential finals matchups outside of the Celtics, of course, the Knicks, the Cavs, things like that, like I'm like, ugh, those are just like death matchups for us right now. It's just like is what it is. But within the West, I think that other teams do still have avenues to exploit that, even without, prime Steph with like a really good team around him, or Dame on those Blazers, etc. So I'm of two minds about it, and I think I ultimately agree with Pete that they can be better, but they're not going to be elite because of those factors.
Okay,
and it might be okay. They might be like middle of the pack defense and just elite playoff offense still, and that could be the formula.
It just puts so much pressure on your offense, right? One of the things I was like harping about a few weeks ago was like, can this team win a damn game where they score less than 115 points? And I think it's happened twice this season, but part of that because they have been scoring like way over that, like all the time. Right. But
they get outrun.
Almost every game where they score less, it's just an L. Like it's not like, oh, we're like slightly below 500 in those games. No, it's like those are 80% of those games are losses. So I'm worried about their ability to win a game with defense. And like as good as the offense has been, like sometimes it's just going to dry up, especially in the playoffs. And so that's the element that this team has not been able to show me, particularly against like the top teams. So even though we talked about even in the Western Conference, there aren't as many like bad, like horrid matchups, particularly at the top of the West, they've still struggled to particularly contain offensively those teams, even though I feel like they have the personnel to contain those teams specifically. In the case of, say, the Rockets or Memphis.
Can I give you guys my pitch as far as why I think they're going to be okay? If in the lens, in my optimist lens. So I look, I click the bottom right of my computer screen and a calendar pops up and I see a month. And, lately it's been looking like it's February, it's January, it's December. I don't know if they care that much, if I'm going to be honest. And there's a few reasons. I think that one is
how is it the positive
season. Okay, well, hear me out. Coming off last season, I think so much of the lesson that they took away from that is like one of burnout, of getting to the end of the year and just not having enough in the tank. I kind of wonder if, especially as this team ages, not to say that the team is old, but it's a lot easier to just run for no reason when you're 22, 23 years old. And now guys are, Jokic is almost 30. I know I'm 30. I feel 30. Uh, and a lot of the guys are getting up in age where they're a little
Did you
bit
just
more. They've
compare yourself to
been,
Jokic?
well, we're about the same age. I just know,
Right.
I just know how I feel. And I know that Jokic is carrying so much more of a burden in life than I am. So I can only imagine, like, if I get home
Fair.
and I'm tired and I was barely doing what Jokic does, 2% of what Jokic does on a weekly basis from a physical standpoint, like, hey, he's gonna. I don't. All that is to say, I'm not mad at him when he doesn't play defense in December. I have a hard time thinking he's gonna care, and the reason that that's a positive is that I think there are ways they could approach it that are different than what they're doing now. I think, in particular, we've seen in the past Jokic better defensively, playing at the level. Not really doing that right now, but also, why would you?
Conserving energy.
I think I would like to see how bad they are defensively when they modify their defensive approach to be a little bit more assertive as opposed to passive in the way that they just let teams attack them and hope they smoke layups, which sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. The other aspect of it is it's not just him being at the level, but also if they can fine tune how the team doesn't really have a tiny guy anymore you can really exploit. As much as I don't love every matchup on every player, if you're the Knicks and you're happy to get Karl Anthony Towns on Jamal Murray, can you are they so small that, like, is that something you're willing to accept long term? If it means they're going to be a little bit more one dimensional, I'm open to that
Well,
idea.
not
If
if
they
Cat
stop,
keeps playing the way that he's been playing.
well, not a cat. I mean, yeah. Hopefully, he doesn't cook in that bad, but I don't know. I think they're a bigger team overall. Like, the backline defense, even if you pull Jokic out of the paint, is better. Mike's having the best year, I think, of his career so far. Maybe not defensively, but
Yeah, not defensively.
weak side, they're tall. That's all I'm gonna say. They're tall. They're not
Right.
trying very hard. They might try harder later. It'll matter later. It's getting
Love
better.
this take. Nuggets might try hard later. Let's
They might
go.
try hard later. I mean, that's really all I
Yeah.
can say.
Well, that's
Yeah,
kind of
and
the
I
case, right? Because I
Make
mean,
the
look at
t-shirt.
how the season started, and look at where it's been. Like they have made progress. Like they do not look like the same team that they did at the beginning of the season. I mean, Will, like I actually I asked this in the comments section of one of the most recent episodes of Locked On Nuggets. Matt said they'll get to it in a future episode, but I want to ask Will this: like, how many different teams have the Nuggets been this season?
I know. I do feel like it's a different team. Well, or you could either say they're like a different team almost every night, or they just kind of fluctuate between two teams every night. Where it's like you got the good team and the bad team, like as simple as that. But it's just, I guess it is true too. Like I know it doesn't feel like the Nuggets have struggled with injuries a ton because like the big names aren't injured a ton. I mean, I know Jamal was injured a lot early on, but AG misses a little bit, Russ misses a little bit, P-Watt misses a little bit.
AG's missed
so-
like half the season.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just like he comes back and then he goes out, and then he comes
Right.
in and then he comes out. There hasn't been like a huge stretch where I think it signals to people like we've been banged up, but it really has created a lot of different lineups. Like I thought we were gonna have the Russ starting lineup for a good while when CB was benched recently in that game, or like benched. I don't think it was like a benching as much as it was just a specific move maybe for that matchup. I think it was it the Knicks game? I don't know. But anyway. And then Russ got hurt, and now we're already doing different stuff, and Zeke's starting.
The most
some
that
games.
was the most recent Knicks game.
So it's just
We
like
got the full look at
we
that
like
starting lineup.
literally and physically are a different team from night to night, I think, by who we're like playing in different rotations and what kind of young players show up. Like, what is Julian doing on offense? because sometimes he shows up and like young players are going to be inconsistent. Even Jamal had been inconsistent, so it's like, what type of Jamal are you getting for the Nuggets? And so it's just like it has been just truly, you never know what you're going to get. And I think that's why it's made it so difficult to have any kind of stance on the Nuggets. Because like I've been really low on them and like, dang, I don't see us winning anything, because usually teams who go on to long playoff stretches are very dominant in the regular season and they look very solid. But at the same time, you can be like the Mavs last year, who kind of were struggling, and then they got that trade, obviously, and we didn't do that. But there are things you can do to like change up your team a little bit and make a run. Even the Lakers made the Western Conference Finals, where they played us in the championship, and they also did a trade. They traded away Russ,
that's a good example, actually, because everyone points to the trade deadline moves that the Lakers made that year, but most of the players that took up the bulk of their playoff rotation were there well before the trade deadline.
Yeah,
It's hard to get traded to a team and then kind of integrate yourself well
Yeah.
in like a short order.
I will say,
Yeah,
like,
also,
one of my
sorry, go
favorite
ahead, Peter.
things. One of my favorite things about Jokic is the selflessness of, Will just talked about how the team can play different styles. If a guy has it going, I don't know if there's another superstar in the league that is more willing to just be like, oh, Jamal's cooking? Yeah, great. Let him cook. I don't care if I finish with 14 points or whatever. He rarely does, but I just always thought it was like the most hilarious criticism of when the whole, like, I don't know if it was Kendrick Perkins or the first person to say that Jokic stat padded. I was just like, what? He's like the least stat paddy of all the superstars in the NBA. Like, if it was up to him, he would have like 10-8 and win by 30 and take the fourth quarter off like every game. So I just like that, if he has to score, he will. And he was doing it at the beginning of the season. But we all know he doesn't want to play like that. So it's good to see Jamal, getting a rhythm. MPJ had a really good stretch before he, had some hamstring tightness. But from everything I'm hearing, it's nothing serious. And basically they just need to get AG going. And then I think, Jokic is always so honest about where the team is at. Because like in the beginning of the season, he's just like, yeah, we're not very good right now.
Yeah.
And recently he's basically like, yeah, we've gotten a lot better, which is clear. But I think he is starting to believe, I don't know what he would say if they're like a contender or not. I don't think he'd be like, no, we're not a contender. But I think he knows that like things are going in the right direction and there's enough time here to be playing your best basketball at the end of the season.
So I kind of see three teams. Like I see the team they were at the beginning of the season, which was kind of their top 7.5 guys, and they really didn't trust anyone else, and they really weren't playing that well.
I mean, Julian was playing a lot.
Yeah, but I don't think he was playing in a way where it was like, oh, we trust you. It's like, okay, let's get this out of the way. We know it's going to be a process. And then obviously people, I think we all felt a little bit of consternation about how bad he's still bad defensively, but even he's getting better, I think. Like he's showing a little bit more. The second team, I think, was as they started to see injuries and kind of have guys come in and out of the lineup, there's a little bit of ambiguity and they're uncertain and they're kind of trying to figure things out and they're trying different lineups and players who usually don't play. And I think from here forward is what I'm hoping is the third team is that the guys in the back of the roster are, you kind of, maybe you trust them or maybe you don't, but you know what you have in terms of the narrow roles that they can fill. And your stars, your core guys, Jamal, he's starting to not be trash. It's nice. and it makes everything else fit together a little bit better.
Yeah.
And there's some nights where like, okay, Aaron is out, but look, see, all you got to do is play defense and go 1 of 3 from 3 and you're good. Go sit down. It's fine. And Jules, can you go 4-7 twice a week? Great. And Jalen Pickett, can you manage us out of a game? Sorry, not manage us out of a game, but can we ride out this game with you playing point guard and it not feel like we need to have Jokic come back in or somebody else come back in? Oh, and yeah, CT is coming with my Super Bowl, which is Zeke Naji getting actual playing time and not being a total disaster at the 4 next to other centers where he doesn't have to do all the defensive rebounding, which he's still not good at, or any of the playmaking, which he's still not good at. But seems a little more confident. But
he's good at being tall. So Ray, I think this is a good time to sort of transition into our next topic, which is still the Nuggets. You guys watch the Nuggets very closely. Everybody here watches as many games they can, obviously. So I think now what we want to talk about is what are the biggest questions for the second half of the season? And if you guys have any, feel free to, we can talk about them after. But my first one for you guys is, it's sort of a two-parter. It's, do you think the Nuggets will push as hard as they can, sort of the way they did last year, to try to get a top 2 seed? And should they? So I guess you can answer those at the same time. Will, I'll start with you.
Okay, my answer would be, I think that they'll push in to some degree. I think to at least be the 3 seed. Or if there's something at the end of the season where they're seeing like a certain matchup coming down the pike, even though the Nuggets say they don't like matchup, what's the word? They'll
matchup hunting.
They don't matchup hunt. They don't. Yeah. So I kind of believe them. Like, I don't think they really care, even though maybe they should. There are sometimes where like it would be so great if you guys just didn't win this game or something because you don't want to play the Wolves or whatever, but they don't give a shit. But no champion, and I'm pretty sure ever, has won outside of the top 3. So if your goal is championship, which is
except
what
for
Jamal's
Hakeem's
saying,
Rockets.
Is that the only exception? Damn, I didn't even realize that.
In like the last, definitely, because they were a 6 seed one year, and were they a 5 seed the other year?
I don't remember about the other year, but they were definitely a 6 seed the second championship year.
Definitely 6 seed. Yeah, second.
I just think top 3. At least, no matter what you think of matchup hunting, there is something too in the NBA having a higher seed and having less teams have to go through all the time. And I know, like, recently we saw the Heat, the 8 seed go to the finals, and the Mavs, the 5th seed, go to the finals, and they don't win. And I don't know if it's because they're just not talented enough, or because they did have to play harder teams, so it's technically more of a grind to have to upset these teams over and over. I think the Nuggets, if you're right there at the 3 seed, I think you should push for it, but don't push for a 2 seed. So that'd be like my short version.
Okay. Grace?
So that was a 2-parter. Do I think they will? I think they probably will. And I think I'm going to disagree with Will about the even the ability to matchup hunt, honestly. And that has less to do with how close the race at the top will be. I don't know. It might be close. But I think that the race on that bubble for the play-in to like 6 seed area is definitely going to be close at the end of the season. So you just won't know which teams are going to be in that spot, that like who's going to be in the running for a 7 seed versus a 6 seed if you wanted to try to get the matchup being the 2 seed or the 3 seed. And so I think they're just going to try to put themselves in the best position. But let's say that Memphis keeps up their level of play, generally speaking, and they're the ones that were kind of in the running for that spot with. I think that the Nuggets should be willing to say, like, look, if we have to go on the road against this team, we can beat them. And there's also a decent likelihood that they get knocked out in the first round anyway. I think they're probably the most vulnerable team in the top 6 outside of the Rockets in terms of a first round upset. So there's that. But I think that they're probably going to push because that's just kind of how they are. But maybe it happens differently this year in that they're not playing, 7-man rotations down the stretch of the regular season, to try to push for the seeding. And I also think that they have like a really tough stretch coming out of the All-Star break for sure. But down the end of the season, it's a lot of like mid and bad teams honestly. So these are like games that, at least in the past month, outside of the Chicago Bulls game, they've shown that they can like take those gimmies and take them comfortably, right? So it doesn't have to be this like down to the wire, um, you know, trapeze act that they were trying to pull last year that didn't work out.
Can I give a cop-out answer?
Sure.
Of course.
I kind of feel like they'll keep a moderate pace to the finish line and have a top 3 seed pretty comfortably. Like I feel like they'll
Possible.
play when, I think they'll play as well as they can, but at the same time, I don't think guys will hesitate to. I don't think the team will hesitate to sit players who need the rest, and I think they're showing that like that's fine. And so it might be a situation where like, okay, Mike is out tonight, but everybody else is playing hard and they win a game. And then Russ is out, another day and everybody else is playing. So they're playing hard, but they're conscious, and I think a little bit more conscious than they were last year of that burnout. And frankly, kind of.
It was everyone's
Grace's point.
answer after game 7. So I'm like, all right, if that's your answer, then I hope you do something about it this year. Like it shouldn't
Right.
look exactly the same as it did last year in terms of how they handle down the stretch of the regular season, how Malone handles things, or how the players do. Because we know they were pushing behind the scenes to be playing 40 plus minutes a night to try to push for they were pushing for the 1 seed at the time, ultimately got 2 by literally a game. And
Thanks, Wemby.
like they need to know better too. And it's ultimately them that's going to be on the floor and that we're going to be judging at the end of the year. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of responsibility to manage the, second half, latter third of the season, I would say with both caution, but also intentionality.
Mhm.
Heading
I think
into
they're
the
doing
playoffs.
that. I feel like they're doing that. Like we're
Yeah, I do
watching
too.
guys get shots. We're watching guys hit games. Aaron Gordon, he's not looking the freshest. That's okay. We don't need you to be peak Aaron Gordon right now. We just need you to be your best self when we play a Minnesota or a Dallas. That's when we really need you to be fresh and sharp. So I do feel like they're approaching that a little bit differently.
So I'm pretty torn on this topic because, on the one hand, I really enjoyed the push last year. I thought it was cool that they showed, like, all right, this is who the Nuggets are. We can kick ass if we want to. Obviously, it didn't work out because they blew that Spurs game. But then, of course, the other side of the coin is you don't want your team to be burnt out in the playoffs. So obviously, I want us to be as good as we can go in the playoffs. But here's one thing that I keep coming back to on this question that makes it sort of tricky is I don't know how easy it is to like take your foot off the gas and still be fine. If that makes sense. Like Malone
Yeah.
is not really a like take your foot off the gas kind of guy. And so I feel like the only way to play the we're not going to push at all costs game is to actually be on the same page as a whole team, whole organization, and like strategically sit guys. Because Jokic has made it adamant he wants to play. And you're not going to just like pull guys and not play them in fourth quarters if it's a close game. Like that's not how basketball works. If it's a close game, guys are going to play. So the
Yeah,
only way
but-
that they learn anything from last year and play it, approach it differently is if, the Porter thing is the first time, guys, that I've seen a Nuggets player not play. And it's like, I don't actually remember him getting injured. The Russ and the AG stuff, those are like legit injuries. So like I don't think the Nuggets are playing guys through stuff in the regular season. They're still resting them, but like P-Watt, real injury. If we actually just start
Jamal's
seeing guys
playing through
like
more stuff
randomly
this season than last season.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we start seeing guys randomly missing games here or there that we're surprised by, to me that's a good thing because that shows they are playing the long game because they haven't done that before.
I will say I do think Jamal, it's a different situation. It is kind of a
It is a
momentum
different
thing for him.
situation.
Like I'm actually just like, hey, keep playing. Like not to say that I want him to play
As punishment?
every night. No, not punishment. It's just I think it's critical for him to have consistency and a ramp up period that is continuous going into the playoffs. Like if he has a stretch of like a real like week long, month long absence, I think that would be pretty detrimental to the team.
I think they might be looking at it like, well, hey, last year we treated you with like the utmost caution, actually, at like throughout different stretches of the season for like various different ailments, and it didn't work. Right, is how you would look at it, given the way that the playoffs went for Jamal. And so they're probably just like, well, we're just gonna let him play when he wants to play now because X, Y, and Z. At least he'll be in condition, and ideally, there's nothing that actually like takes him out. I like the one thing from last season that I will say, like, he absolutely should have missed the time that he missed for was definitely the hamstring, and that was just like a thing at the beginning of last season. And he had it briefly this year. I forget if it was the hamstring or the calf. That soft tissue stuff is really like, you don't want to mess with it. Right. But it feels like they're playing. He's on the injury report a lot more this season and still playing the games, it feels like, than last year for sure.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any more Nuggets thoughts you want to get out before we move to big picture NBA stuff?
I would say Julian Strother. I think
All
he's
right.
I think
Better
he's
since
like
the
a
haircut?
wild. If the team has a wild card, it's kind of him. And as much as it's not that I don't believe in his game, it's that I don't know if he'll be. I don't know if he can get over the hump of not being detrimental to the team. Like they had a game. I want to say it was the last game they played where I want to say Julian, he played less minutes than Jalen Pickett and had better counting stats than Jalen Pickett, but a worse plus minus. And I feel like that's exactly what I'm talking about in terms of like, can he get to that point where you're not playing Jalen Pickett because in an important game because you need something, you need someone who can be stable and not do crazy things or turn the ball over or ruin and hijack an offensive possession or things like that. And so can he get that stability and get over that hump in that sense? I don't know. I'm not really sure, especially if it's in like a lead ball handling kind of like primary role in the way that they've been trying to play him. I think if he's just a floor spacer, it's a little bit different. He's not managing the game, but yeah, that's the kind of, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on him, but he's the thing I think about.
I have some like related thoughts to that, so hopefully I can connect them. But I'm really curious to see, in terms of the biggest questions for the second half of the season, like what Malone's rotations are going to be. We've, been on a roll with a lot of guys out at different points, often multiple guys in the same game. Like, what do things look like when Russ gets back? And I ask that because obviously after the All-Star break is often when Malone starts to, form his playoff rotations. And is it going to be, Julian, like, okay, your role is cut down to like 10, 15 minutes a night? And do we end like, I'm fine with that. Like if we get to the point where it's like, okay, Julian, you're in the playoff rotation because you have to be, but we feel comfortable enough to play you 10 to 15 minutes a night in high leverage games. That's awesome, right? Or is it going to be like, was it the last game against the Blazers where we're down Russ and Peyton and MPJ, right? And Julian is getting benched to close both halves. He's getting benched for Jalen Pickett to close both halves, despite all those injuries. And that was, in reference to, I think, the same game that you're talking about.
Yeah, it is the same game.
The counting stats were good, but it was like, I do think that Julian was actually starting to find some rhythm when everybody was healthy. And then it's not that he's been playing like all that poorly, particularly on offense, although the process has been like hit or miss for me lately as his role has grown with MPJ out. Like, I think the coaching staff has told him, like, we need you to be aggressive. Like, somebody needs to take these shots because MPJ is out. And or one of the games with Jamal was out, right? I think that was the Magic game where he started off at point, and it was like a disaster to start the game, and then we had to like resettle some things. So I'm curious how he looks in that new role, and I just kind of agree with Ray in that regard. In terms of like, is he going to be a guy? Because we kind of need him to be.
Yeah, I think
Not
that's
kind
the
of like
question.
we do.
It's also NBA Chicken's question. Any thoughts on how the playoff rotation shakes out? And I do think it's one of those guys have to play at least in the first round. You know, I think in the championship year, Jeff Green was that guy where first round he played, second round he played some, and then eventually got cut out. But
Round two? Oh, the Suns. I barely remember him from that series, to be completely honest.
Yeah, let's circle back to this. The thing about Jeff Green is that he doesn't do anything. Like, he's the master of, he's not making any mistakes. So it's kind of what we're talking about. It's not like he's like
the
turning the
occasional
ball
back
over,
cut, you know,
hijacking.
the
Well,
occasional
he's not.
letting someone
Malone loves
rebound
that,
over
though.
him.
He's not doing anything. Yeah,
Malone
he's a very
hates
low
mistakes.
activity. He's not making
Yeah.
mistakes. He's just not doing anything. Like, he's just not getting the rebound or making that extra effort to make cover up for a defensive mistake that a lot of guys would, that Aaron Gordon would, that Peyton Watson would, that Christian Brown would. And so, you know, that's kind of the bar in my mind. So it's not that I think Julian could get there. He's just not there yet. And I think what is his intended role? Like, obviously he's supposed to be aggressive. That's how they coached him so far, but especially as you trim down the rotation, and now it's not Strother, Zeke, Saric, whoever, right? And it's Jokic and Aaron Gordon.
We played the first half of that game too. Malone was like, I'm not going back to that for some reason.
It was
I thought it was
think
fine.
he just tried it. I think he just tried it. You want to give him a shot with Jokic.
He was just like, we need a body out there.
Yeah. But having him fit into the actual core players without, you know, it's a different sort of role for him. So I wonder if that's something he can figure out. Or if Will or Peter, if you guys think there's someone else who might, Jalen Pickett, take his spot as like eighth man if need be.
If Malone, I guess it's just like a risk in terms of like the upside of Julian, where like he could go in and hit a ton of threes, but I don't know, Jalen has been just like firing them and hitting, so, and he doesn't really make mistakes. He has good ball control, like, but man, he's pretty small too, and can look
6'7" wingspan.
I like that.
I've seen him guard fives, honestly, better than most players on our team this season.
I mean, if he I guess I'm just saying,
five solution all along.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like if Malone just wants someone who's kind of a low mistake, like more solid guy, just to eat up some minutes, like I could see Pickett getting some weird, just short little stints. But I just feel like he's gonna go with Julian for sure. But he'll be more quicker to pull him for something. I saw this comment too.
I think part of,
and it's. Hold on, just real quick. Like, I mean, Strother, he does need another year or two for sure. Like, he's like where you would expect someone like him to be on some level, depending on where you see him. Like, if you see him as like just a 3-and-D role player type, I don't know where his defense is going to end up. But I always thought he had a higher ceiling than that, just because I thought his offensive talent was so like potent that he could be really special. And I don't know what the Nuggets really see for him and his long-term vision with the team and, like, what spots he's fitting in. On-ball stuff, like you were saying, Ray, I don't think he's going to be doing that in the playoffs. That's too, like, scary, I think. But as, like, a spacer type who can just hold up a little bit better and use his length on defense in the playoffs, it's, like, best-case scenario. So it's like, he does need a year or two, but, like, this is a championship, like, contending team. So we'll see. Like, a lot of things might be answered in the playoffs in this stretch for him and like P-Walk too. So
I kind of feel like I want to believe Peyton Watson is like in the circle of trust. I just wish he had played more, he missed the window where they started playing everybody. That's not my only
Yeah.
thing. I wish
Right.
Payton. But I think he'll be
Yeah.
solidly in that like seventh spot in the rotation. Um,
So yeah, I think I have a very cut and dry take on Julian. I think that he will start in the playoff rotation, just like he did last year. And after he makes a few crucial mistakes, Malone's going to bench him. But I do think that the lineups matter a lot with that. Like NBA Chicken was asking about what lineups do you like. I think Strother makes a ton of sense with the bench. You know, he can get open threes off Russ pushing it. Pickett is better for like playing with Jokic because he's high IQ, low mistake player. I think if Jokic is out of the game, it's going to be hard to generate offense if Pickett's on the floor with the other guys. And then as far as who I want the Nuggets to play, I want to play the Kings. I mean, the Kings can't guard anybody, so hopefully they win enough games and get the playoffs, and we play them. Every other team, I could see beating Denver. Honestly,
they're currently the ninth seed. Just saying. I don't
that's my
know.
answer.
Yeah. Okay. I also think to your point, Zeke could play if the matchup calls for it. Like I think it could be a situation
Yeah.
where that eighth man is really just like who fits the situation and what you need a little bit more. Do you
Right.
need a spark plug? You might go Strother. Do you need consistency, stability, structure? You might go with Pickett. Do you need defense and defense? You go with Zeke and hope he makes the occasional three. But yeah, yeah. But otherwise, so on a scale of 1 to championship, how do y'all feel? Where would you say you were? To kind of wrap up the segment, where would you say you were at the beginning of the year, and where are you now? Like 1 to 10, if 10 is championship and 1 is, I don't know what a 1 would be, but whatever your 1 is.
Don't make the playoffs.
That would be.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm saying
yeah,
one
sure,
would be
yeah,
don't make the playoffs.
yeah. It could. I don't know how it could be worse. They've won enough. They could lose all the games.
I didn't even think that was a possibility.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what my 1 is, but wherever you are.
1 to me is like losing the first round.
First round
Something like
exit, swept in the first round.
Yeah, swept in the first, something like that, maybe. At least for like realistic, at least at this point.
Oh,
But
the
before,
vibes.
are you saying before the season or just like recently? Where were we versus
If you
now?
have a recollection of where you were early
Yeah.
season compared to where you are now.
I kind of feel like going into the trade deadline, right before we went on this huge win streak, I was more in the 5 range, thinking we were like a second round exit, pretty much solidly a second round exit. I think is where I had us, just because I thought the depth wasn't there. We're injured on top of that, so I was like, oh, our seed's probably going to go down, with these injuries, because I didn't think Zeke and them would fill in. But I know we have played worse teams, but we still have like crushed them kind of convincingly, and the team looks like they're playing better together. And that gives me hope to play the more tougher teams. So I probably moved up a little bit. I'm definitely not at championship because I still have like questions. Like we don't even really know how the playoff rotation looks right at this point. And a lot of it is on Malone, I think, to like come up with solutions and play the right players in the right spots, which is going to be a challenge for him and those players who are asked to come in for those spots. So I don't know.
Those players might not have any right spots.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm probably like at a 7 or something, just because I guess it could happen. I could see us going to the Western Conference Finals too, and then just like seeing who's even there. I'd feel better about getting to the finals than like beating the Thunder. Even though I think Jokic is a great matchup. He can do damage against the Thunder. It's just they're so good and solid and fast and young, and who really knows? The West is weird because they seem tough, but there's like questions too, and the Mavs are now like completely out of it. And I would have been more worried about the Mavs. Luka hadn't got traded, so yeah.
It's interesting, and maybe maybe we can kind of shift into. I kind of wanted to get you guys' thoughts about where we felt about the Western Conference post trade deadline and all the things that happened. Like, the Lakers getting handed another generational
Wait,
talent.
wait, wait. There was a major trade. One of the best
Oh.
players from the Balkans was traded. Bogdan Bogdanovic went to the Clippers.
Of course.
Oh, wait, just kidding. I think you're talking about somebody else. Go ahead.
Bogey did go to the Clippers. I think that's a good pickup for them. I'm glad Bogey got traded. I'm glad it wasn't to Denver because it didn't make sense right now. But I hope he ends up in Denver at some point. That would be cool. I think he would be a good connection to have with Jokic. I just wouldn't give up Mike to do it.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, Luka getting traded to the Lakers. So I'll try to be quick. For me, I'm not as afraid of the Lakers as I was before the trade because who's playing defense? Like they've got a whole team to build, and I don't really believe in them. And I know they're as I look and breathe, they're the 5th seed, which okay, but it feels like prime territory for another like gentleman sweep, and I don't know. I hope Luka leaves Loki, but. With the Mavs, I actually think, well, if we had had this conversation a week ago before he got hurt, I would have told you that Anthony Davis kind of makes them a more complete team in a way that they weren't before. And the amount of size that they have kind of makes them more capable of replicating the strategies that have made Denver's life really difficult. But that they didn't have the top end talent to maybe be a threat in the way that a Minnesota might be. Like, I think you could throw Peyton Watson on Kyrie and I don't think you would need to double him. I'm not saying he wouldn't score, but I don't think you would need to double him. And I think that would be it. That would be it for them in a lot of ways. But I feel bad. Can I just say that? I just
Yeah.
As a Laker hater, you feel bad? Yeah.
No. It's like watching someone get strung out on drugs or something, and like 5 years later you're like, oh no, like what happened?
Yeah.
Like
Are you talking
that's
about
how
the Mavs?
Yes, like
Okay,
it's
okay.
like
I'm
it's
just like
the
sure I'm
fall
following
off
this.
of vibes are just I am
Yeah.
devastated on their behalf as a community, and to have that first game, the first half of that first game go as well as it did, and then like, okay, the basketball gods spoke, and I don't know. I don't know what to say. Yeah. I would be scared fully healthy a little bit.
Yeah, I would. That's kind of what I meant too. Is like now with 80 being out and their seed's going to be way worse. I don't know where they're going to end up, or if they end up in the play-in and sneak in. I don't think they'd get past that point. But so I don't think the Nuggets will end up playing them. But I think I just felt worried because Luka and Kyrie, just with their offensive output, probably could have matched what we were doing, and then we just are worse defensively. And like Kyrie's tougher to cover, I think, with Luka out there with our team. But whatever, that's done now. And the Mavs were one of my teams. Speaking of agendas from the beginning of the show and how they were doing, the Mavs were one of my like agenda teams where I wanted them to be much worse after like giving up Derrick Jones Jr. and bringing in Najee Marshall and stuff, and they ended up being way better than I thought.
Much worse for a different reason.
Yeah, and then this just happened, and like with Clay joining, I didn't want that to work, and like God, this is just insane. So it's a whole different outlook, and just like
Can we
on
talk
the Lakers,
about how important Klay Thompson has suddenly become on that Mavs team since they gave away their offense?
Sure. Yeah,
He's kind of like a real third option.
He's back to being
like,
a second option, and it's like
Well,
not
yeah.
a worse offensive team,
yeah,
I
because
think
like who
we
else
need
is
him.
gonna do it?
especially with AD out. Actually, wasn't even thinking about that part of it.
All right.
But in terms of like a second perimeter option.
This is enough Dallas Mavericks talk for me. I think I need to give a hot take. A team that just made a trade in the middle of the West. The Golden State Warriors acquired Jimmy Butler, and I don't know if you guys have watched them play since they got Jimmy, but they're 3-1. And shocker, you put another guy who can handle the ball and put pressure on the rim and on the defense next to Steph Curry, and all of a sudden Steph Curry looks way better. The Warriors have known this all season, which is why they've been, trying so hard to get somebody. It was an absolutely hilarious trade deadline with the Phoenix Suns trying to move Bradley Beal, nobody wanting Bradley Beal. They pivot to asking the Warriors if they'd be interested in taking back Kevin Durant because they're trying to get like Kuminga and rebuild. And the Warriors are like, yeah, we'll do it. And Durant kills the deal. He's like, nah, I ain't going back. So the Warriors end up with Jimmy. Now you have a pretty clean fit, I think, of Steph at the 1, Jimmy at the 3, Podziemski at the 2, with Draymond, and then either go big with Looney or you can play Moody and go small. But that team, they annihilated the Rockets the other day. The Rockets made kind of like a fake comeback, but I really feel like Jimmy and Steph together is one of the better duos in the West, and we can't just look at the Warriors now and look at their record and say, oh, they're just like 7th or 8th place team. Like, I think that team got way better, guys.
Y'all can talk because I'm going to be disrespectful.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my other move that happened at the trade deadline to look out for. I think the Warriors are a substantially better team than they were. So I thought that there was a higher likelihood that they would miss the play-in entirely than, make the 6th seed. But now I think they have a shot at that, probably 7 or 8 spot. I think it's going to be difficult for them to catch up to 6. Not because they're not going to play better, but because everybody's going to be playing better post-deadline, right? And that means that opens up the door to them being a potential first-round matchup for a 2 seed or a 3 seed if they made it up to 6, which I think is less likely, but I think they could make it up to 7 or 8. And that's interesting just because I think the Thunder should generally smoke them, but I think the Warriors make a series of it. That team has always played OKC pretty well.
It's like
It's
true
interesting
vet experience versus very
yeah,
young.
it's interesting because the Warriors, one of their worst qualities is how often they turn the ball over, and one of OKC's best quality just as a team is their ability to turn the ball over. It's the thing they do the best, better than everybody else.
Mhm.
But the Warriors are just
All about length.
we do this all day every day anyway. We know how to play. So that's always a fun. I think that actually turns the 1-8 into a fun first round series, as opposed to the Thunder should probably smoke almost anybody else that is likely to get into that slot, right? So they're more interesting. I don't know if they win a series though. I highly doubt that they do unless they luck out and get Memphis in the first round, should they make the playoffs.
Will,
All right,
thoughts?
Ray, what are your mean thoughts? Because I was just more on Jimmy. With the Nuggets rumors, I didn't want him to come here because I thought he's too old. He's probably injury prone. He may get hurt again. But the Warriors have been playing better, and I haven't watched a ton of their games with Jimmy. So, I want to hear your mean impression of.
I don't give a
this
fuck.
team.
It's not enough. They've got a few solid dudes now, but it's not enough. And I don't see it going anywhere. I'm happy for them. You're trying, you're giving it your college best. It's just, I have no concern. I don't think about the Warriors. They're still not good. They're not that good. I'm sorry. You need
I like it.
maybe next year they can build around that kind of core that they have, and maybe somebody else wants to show up. I just don't have a lot.
You
of
legitimately
faith.
think the Warriors, with their 3 best players being Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, are not good?
Not enough.
I'm not saying they're coming
Enough
out
for
west.
what?
Not at exactly.
No, I don't
okay,
think anybody
are they
has
good enough
been,
for?
true title contenders.
They're good enough to be a more competitive first round exit.
Fair
They
enough.
really do got to get up there in the seedings to have a chance of winning a series for sure.
And I don't want to. And it's not. I don't want to disrespect them as players in their careers, like Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, great players, also just in their mid-30s, and I just don't believe in them. I'm sorry.
All right, who
just
wins
don't.
more playoff games this year, Golden State or the Clippers?
Oh,
If the Clippers are playing us,
me
then
look at
Clippers.
which where are the Clippers in the standings right now? Are they
They're
six or
They're
sixth.
seven?
sixth.
They're sixth.
More
If-
games
if-
in the
I think
playoffs.
the
I'm gonna
thing
say
is,
the
it's
Clippers.
like assuming the
matchup.
Clippers stay in six, they're playing like us or Memphis.
If
They'd
get
probably
Memphis,
beat Memphis.
they'd probably
They
beat
do
Memphis.
probably beat Memphis. I believe that.
Wow.
And
That
you know
was
who they
sweet.
just got?
Unless Kawhi's not healthy.
In
and then
addition
it's
to
like, damn, no.
Bogdanovich, they just got Ben Simmons, who played like really well for them the other day. And he's funny
Their
because
spacing sucks, Pete.
he's
Like,
kind of a
he's not
perfect
helping
fit
with
for the
that.
team. He can come in off the bench. He can play those backup point guard minutes that they were struggling with for Harden. He doesn't have to play in crunch time. He can fit in with Ty Lue, play defense. He races their floor. So I know that doesn't really help you a ton in the playoffs, but I think the Clippers will have less disaster minutes. And, you know, if Harden and Powell can play at this level in
Yeah,
the playoffs, they could win a series. But Harden never plays at this level in the playoffs. So we'll see.
We don't know if they're.
I feel
need to see
kind of
them
the
actually
same
play.
about the Clippers as I do about Golden State. Like their
All
best,
right.
like the Clippers' best players are worse. Like Kawhi hasn't looked like Kawhi this year, even
better
when he's
role players.
played. Are they better role players? They're like the same to me.
Okay. Well, what about Minnesota then?
Like
Where
who's
do
the
you-
best? Who's the best role player between Golden State and the Clippers?
I mean, it probably depends on. Do you consider Pajemski a role player?
He's not good this year, so there's that. But
I mean,
like,
Powell,
I guess
Norman
the Clippers
Powell has been really good
They got
for the
rid of their
Clippers.
worst guys. Yeah, it's
Powell's
probably
like their
Norman
second leading
Powell,
scorer.
right? He's probably the best role player on.
I just think
there.
Powell's
he just
averaging
That's the
more points
problem,
per game
though.
than
You
Jamal
can't afford
Murray.
Powell
I don't know
to
if that
be a
says more
leading
about.
scorer.
Yeah, that's a two-sided statement.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Zubac is a good role player too.
Speaking of
I
the
feel the
comp,
same way about those two teams, but the Clippers just happen to be in the 6th seed right now. It's just like I think that they could be a competitive
All
team,
right.
and if they like luck out matchup wise, I could see them winning a series, but that's it.
And then where are you guys at on Minnesota?
I think that
Trash.
they've been underperforming this season in that they're kind of a sleeper.
Yeah,
They
I have a
gave
lot of-
OKC real problems the other night. That I didn't
They
feel like
did.
that was a fluke game.
The one thing I will say with Minnesota is they have started to turn a corner, but it's been highly dependent on one, like Randall not being there, so there's more spacing. Like Jaden plays better in particular when
Better
Randall's
without
not
him.
there. I don't even think it's like a Randall thing because they have a lot of good lineups with him too. But they've been really dependent on Rob Dillingham playing well. And I don't even know if he's gonna make a playoff rotation, let alone play well in the playoffs
Right.
as a rookie. So that would be like if they're a house of cards, I think that's it. That's the reason why. But I mostly think of them as a team that's been underperforming their potential because I think they have a lot. Like they're still I think they're the deepest team in the West field because they've got like 9 guys that could be starters on other West playoff teams.
I can see that. Yeah, Naz Reid's one of the best bench players in the league. I mean, DiVincenzo's out right now, but yeah, they've got a pretty deep team. I think
Nikhil.
they didn't have great chemistry to start the season. Maybe they go on a run.
Yeah, and I think they're a tough out for anybody. I honestly don't think
Oh, yeah.
it matters where they end up in the standings. Like they're not losing in less than 6 to anybody, I don't think. This isn't the 23 Timberwolves, for example, just because they've
So
been
you're
playing
pretty
with great
confident that
records.
they're like making the playoffs. They're either going to be 6 or they're like
Yeah.
winning their playing game,
I
basically.
feel pretty good about like it would take a pretty like nasty disaster stretch of like, and they have been really bad in clutch games, like one of the worst in the league
Yeah.
this year. They'd have to lose like 10 close games in a row, but I
Yeah.
feel they're gonna make the playoffs outright if they're even like 80% of what like if you dig into the metrics, like they look like a top 4 or 5 team, but they haven't been performing that way record wise.
I do want to just defend one team real quick. even though I just said I thought the Clippers would beat him, I feel like everybody's gotten a little bit too low on Memphis. Yes, I understand that they're just playing like we have so many guys, let's push the pace regular season type basketball right now. But it's not like this team's never made the playoffs before. This team has won 2 playoff rounds, before last year, which was the year they all got hurt. And I think they've already been sort of strategically resting Ja a lot. So I think this
Has it
team
been
has.
strategic?
I think some of it has, and I
But
think
like
that
he's been missing a lot of time. I don't know how strategic that could be unless this is like Kawhi level.
I think there's probably more they're not letting us know, but I just think that he's at the point in his career where he knows that it's like I want to do it in the playoffs now. Like he probably could have pushed harder to make All-Star this year, but he wasn't going to make it. Jaren made it this year.
So he's already missed like almost 15 games this season.
Yeah. Bane's starting to play better again. It is a very deep team. Obviously, they rely a lot on Edie, who's a rookie, but I wouldn't count them out. I'm not saying like I think they're going on a run, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did win a round. I think people are like dismissing them too easily. I think they have a lot of talent. Like they don't win games by accident.
So
I mean, I feel the same way about them that I do about the Rockets. Is the thing, except like the Rockets, I feel worse about because their offense is like atrocious, right? But I feel like all this time that Ja is missing, like whenever I tune in to watch the Grizzlies with and without Ja, it feels like he doesn't know how to maximize himself within the way that they're playing offense right now. And that's my concern is that I'm like, sometimes you need Ja to like do superstar stuff.
Yeah.
And it's only happening in games where he's already like 2 of 15 from the field and they somehow made it to the clutch anyway.
Yeah, let's keep our eye on Memphis and reconvene in a couple months.
All right.
I don't have a lot of faith in their best punch. I guess that's the thing is like it's kind of like okay, so Rogue points out about the Clippers, what are you getting from Kawhi? What are you getting from James Harden? I think that those are valid questions, but I feel like if they're healthy and they're playing, I do feel like they're going to play well and they're going to execute down the stretch. They'll know how to get certain shots. Like I have a vision in my mind of like the best punch of the Clippers is really good. Has that ever come to fruition? Not really, or at least not in a good opportunity for them to take it all the way. I don't know what the Memphis Grizzlies best punch can accomplish compared to a lot of the teams above them. I guess that's how I'd put it. And maybe in the Rockets a similar way, like y'all are very talented, they're very good, but like what is their best form, what is their best lineup and can they beat other lineups with that?
The Rockets are clearly in their 2019 Nuggets phase of this is going to be the first time making the playoffs with this group. Like, yeah, they'd love to win a series, but I think they're just happy to be there and kind of learn the lessons. Nobody expects the Rockets to win a playoff series this year. That team has some major questions to answer because unlike the 2019 Nuggets, I don't think the Rockets have a clear number one option like moving forward. I mean, Sengun made All-Star this year, but is a center as your first option realistic? Like, come on, he's not as good as Jokic. Like people have compared him, but yeah, it's like not comparable. He's a good player. I like him. And then Jalen Green is just he's got to be one of the most frustrating players in the league, right? Because he's so good at creating space. He can get his own shot, but he just clearly doesn't have like a deep understanding of how to play basketball. So I think the Rockets have been pretty transparent about how they want a star hunt. They said they were not going to go after Jimmy Butler, which I think makes sense. He's too old for their timeline. But they're the kind of team I could see making a major move in the offseason because I just don't see them having a 1A on this roster as good as their players are. Maybe if you can talk me to Amen Thompson, but that's not going to happen like next year. It's going to take years of development for him to be on like a quad trajectory.
There's one more team I want to talk about maybe at length, and then maybe we can kind of rapid fire the rest. So we haven't touched on OKC a ton. CUB also mentioned, what happens in an OKC Denver matchup. Well, I'm kind of curious what you think as far as how you view them. Obviously, they are the 1 seed for a good reason, and they are busting a lot of ass right now. And I do respect that. But do you think it's going to translate, and to what extent will it in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's hard to know because they are so good. They're like running away with the 1 seed, which they just have so many young, talented, high draft pick players who I think just are super solid in the regular season. And it doesn't surprise me that they're doing this. It's just, what is it going to look like in the playoffs? The like critique on them has always been like the interior game, and I mean the Bucks really exposed them in the NBA Cup too, where like Giannis was just dominating them in the paint and wasn't really much they could do. But they have Hartenstein now, so we'll see how he plays next to Chet. Chet, did he come back? I didn't even like see that. I
Yeah.
heard he was coming back, but
Yeah,
He's been playing.
you know, they have them. Jokic still, I would take him in that matchup for sure. So I think we just have an advantage at center, like absolutely. And I think we do have more offense around Jokic that's, I think, more reliable than OKC, even though I really love J-Dub. So it's like you load up on Shea, hope that whatever Shea's giving, even though he's going to score and get his points, I mean, Jokic is just, I think, even more reliable or on par in terms of like what he's going to give on offense. And you hope that the rest of our team just has enough on offense to compete and beat them. That said, you got to really hold on to the ball because OKC is going to really go after the turnovers. And if Nuggets are doing turnovers, we're usually losing the game anyway. So it's like it's even more important to have Jokic be assisting and on point, and the other guys really, making the most of their opportunities around Jokic. But I just don't really know because they're young. Like they went to the playoffs last year. No one had a ton of expectations, as you shouldn't, because they're young and inexperienced. What did they learn from that run? And I still have questions about even their coach and how he's gonna like problem solve and adjust to other teams in the playoffs. And he very well could, and they could like run through the West and go to the finals. I wouldn't be surprised necessarily, but I still think there's like questions about the offense and the peripheral role players, and then like even Mark Dagnall and like what he's gonna do. So it would be tough just because they're so solid and they're so fast and young. But I could see like Denver outsmarting them on some level.
That's fair. I mean, I have my own thoughts, but Grace or Peter, if you any other, I don't know. Do you have any strong feelings about OKC?
Yeah, to me, it all comes down to Jalen Williams. I think Shea has proven in the playoffs last year that he's good enough. Like, he doesn't shy away from the moment. He's going to get his 30, right? But what you got to do is you got to make sure Shea doesn't get 45. So I think you end up doubling Shea, make him give up the ball, and see if Jalen Williams can beat you. And last year, he couldn't. Now, yes, it was a variant series. The Mavericks role players hit a lot of threes. OKC went kind of cold. But I think, as we've seen this year, as good as Oklahoma City is, a sneaky like little secret about them is they shot the ball better last year. The reason they're so good is because they have so many good players and because they're an elite defense. Like, yeah, when they hit their threes, they blow you out. You have no chance. But do you trust Case and Wallace to hit threes in the playoffs? Do you trust, Dort and Wiggins to hit threes? Isaiah Joe probably will, but he's also not a great defender. He can get played off the floor. So I think, yeah, the point about Dagnall is excellent because the Thunder, it's kind of funny. They've been really good, and the Nuggets have been really good because they've pushed the ball a lot this year. But in the playoffs, I kind of feel like every team that's smart, including the Nuggets, is going to try to slow it down against them. So how do they do in a more half-court game where they really have to execute? And my question again, it's not with Shea. I think he'll be fine. If he's not like, even though he's like definitely a top 5 player in the league now, he's not on the Luka and Jokic and even LeBron level as like passer yet. So, is he going to be able to give the ball up, but like still give his offense enough of an advantage? Or is it just going to be more like a station to station offense, So I think that's the big question with OKC is their offense. Like, how does the 2 through 5 guys play? And obviously their defense is good, but that was kind of their issue last year was the offense outside of Shea.
Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree with Pete there. I'll even like take that a little bit further and say, like, even in that NBA Cup game against the Bucks, You look at the final box score, I think they had a 102 defensive rating in that game, but they got blown out because they could not score for anything. And that was like scoring against size. And that's like an area where Shea struggled in that game, but everyone else struggled in that game a lot more. That was their problem against Dallas, even more so than their defense, in my opinion. I think they actually defended Dallas better than better than any team, like except Boston, but I think there were elements that OKC did better. Whatever. Won't go into those details necessarily. But the thing is, like, their defense is so good that it might not matter, right? They've been in many games this season, not like a crazy ton because SGA has mostly been pretty consistent, but many games where he's having an off night and they're able to win it defensively and just like keep things close. And then like they're literally never out of a game. They never like let go of the rope, right? They only have 10 losses this season. I was looking at it. I think their biggest margin of loss that they gave up was like 13 points or something this season. So like they don't get blown out. Like you have to put them away, and that's going to be difficult for a lot of teams to do, especially against the level of defense that they play pretty consistently. So I'm just not like, if I were a Thunder fan, I wouldn't be like worried about them like falling to a sort of clearly inferior opponent. Like there's really no reason for that. But you know, a lot of people have pointed it out that the West, especially this year, but I think the league as a whole, is really about matchups. But there are levels to it, right? Because if you have something that you do better than another team, and they have an area of weakness that they can exploit against you, but you're better at the thing that you do to exploit them, it doesn't matter that they have, you know, something on you. And I've been thinking about this ever since. I maintain that I think that the Phoenix Suns had a matchup advantage against the Timberwolves last year, but they were not good enough at a perimeter drive and kick game and like off ball movement, all the things that you should be good at as a team, like attacking from the perimeter in order to exploit the Timberwolves, to take advantage of that. Plus, it's not the Timberwolves obviously had matchup advantages of their own in that series. Like the Suns had no answer for Cat, the Suns had no answer for Ant, like all that stuff too. And Phoenix wasn't good enough at the thing that they had the personnel for to exploit. But, you know, so I think that sort of question is just going to come up a lot more throughout the West playoffs this year for every team, because I think every team is like pretty fundamentally flawed in like a pretty like gaping way. Even the best teams, like we're talking about OKC, and we're like, where is the offense going to come from outside of SGA? And this is a team that's on pace for, you know, probably 68, 69 games this season. And that's true obviously for every team below them as well, right? And we've seen them throughout this regular season. So it's really just a matter of like, you know, Ray, you talked about some of these teams and what does their best punch look like? And that I think is relevant. Like, what's the thing that you do and how good can you be at that thing to exploit other teams? That's a question that every team in the West is going to be asking themselves in each matchup that they face. And you know, vice versa, like how resilient are we to teams kind of exploiting this thing that is a weakness of ours?
Yeah, I wonder, or I was just going to say, I think about like, is Jamal Murray peak Jamal? Because I don't know if they have, I think people, I don't want to like get into too much the MVP discourse. If you want to call Jokic and SGA a wash, I'm going to let you do that. You have fun with that. I might not agree, but let's assume that that's true. If Williams is giving you 30, can Jamal give you 45? Can he give you 40 in a game? I feel like...
I don't think either of them are putting up those numbers, to be completely honest.
Well, I hope not. But, I mean, if Jamal is who he needs to be, and then you go to, like, the third-on-third matchup, like... Is Chet going to have the kind of day he needs to against a Jokic and AG and Michael Porter front court? I don't know. Maybe. But
Right.
Denver does have a lot of the size that I think they struggle with. So I feel, if I'm a Nuggets fan, I don't feel as bad. But yeah, Peter, go ahead.
One last point I want to make on this topic is when it comes to the playoffs, things we've seen talked about over and over again is, in the regular season, there's so many games and so much less time to prepare that it really is just sort of like roll the ball out and like run. And OKC's team is built really well for the regular season. I'm not saying they can't win in the playoffs, but I'm saying like if it's just like run and jump and shoot and dunk and don't read much of the scouting report, you're going to lose to OKC. But in a playoff series, you have way more time to prepare and build counters and do wrinkles that you see if they can adjust to. So I'm not saying that means I think they're going to lose, but I do think that they're going to face adversity at some point in the playoffs. Probably before the finals even. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that and how Diagonal adjusts to it.
I give Denver and Minnesota a good shot against OKC. I think Dallas would make it difficult, but they'd probably lose.
Like as good of a shot as anyone could have. Yeah.
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 I know they're far ahead in the standings, but that trio, I kind of have them as who do I think might come out of the West? I think it's one of those three teams. That's just me.
Interesting.
But yeah. I hate to do this.
Last year's top 3 seeds, none of whom came out of the West.
Well, that too. But I was going to say, I hate to do this. I have to talk about the Lakers, I guess, because I don't know. Who else is there? The Suns. They don't even matter to me. Will, are you LeBron, Luka playoffs?
I mean, they're gonna make the playoffs. I would assume, unless I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they could really suck and flame out. But no, the Lakers are who I would want the Nuggets to play in the first round. Like if I had to pick anyone, just in terms of like it being an easy series and just getting a win.
I would enjoy it.
But I am so fed up with the Lakers series. Like I am someone who's like I want the Nuggets play anyone else but the Lakers because I'm already like over it. But it's too, to me, enticing with them only having Jackson Hayes and Alex Len. Like Jokic is gonna just absolutely cook them and destroy them. I think Rui is terrible on defense. Obviously, Luka is terrible on defense. LeBron is hurt and doesn't want to play defense, and it's just too easy. Old. Yeah, it's just I would want that matchup. I think it would be great for the Nuggets. I think we cruise through it. So, like to answer NBA Chicken's question, that'd be who I'd pick. But yeah, I'm not like convinced at all that the Lakers are gonna seriously do any damage. God, yeah, they haven't really even looked that convincing, and people are already saying like they believe in them. Like Luka's first game, he scored like 14 points or whatever, but like the next games after that have been pretty bad. And like LeBron has a little more pep in his step because he's excited about this Luka thing, but I don't know. I just don't buy them. I don't buy the whole roster construction at this point. Like they're just like an unfinished product. This is like the middle point between like a whole new start for the franchise and the last one. So it's just like mixing them together, I think, is a pipe dream. So, but that's my belief.
I think it's a sweep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to be fair to the Lakers, I really don't think this trade was about this year. I mean, yeah, they're going to say that they're trying to compete, but if you guys, I know you guys are in the know and are paying attention. We just haven't mentioned it yet. The Lakers made a trade after the Luka trade. They traded for the center from the Hornets, Mark Williams, and then the trade got rescinded because he failed the physical. So to me, that was a clear message of like, oh, this opportunity came up. We need a center. Let's try to get this guy and go for it now. By rescinding the trade, it told me two things. It told me, okay, they'd rather have that pick back and try again with somebody they trust more health-wise, but it also signaled like, okay, we're okay with just moving forward this year with what we have, and we'll sign Alex Len, and Kendrick Perkins can talk about how Luka's going to rejuvenate him, and we're going to all laugh. But yeah, I think if they really were like worried about going for it, like if they were Matt Ishbia, right, they would have just not nixed that trade. They would have been like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Mark Williams will get healthy. But no, I think it was smart to rescind that trade if you don't think he's healthy, and keep your chips and trade for a center this summer. So what's weird is, we always talk about how like the game slows down in the playoffs. I think the Lakers have this weird team where like if they played the Nuggets in the playoffs, I don't know how good we can stop Luka LeBron, but yeah, they're not going to stop us. It actually might be like a 130 to 120 type games in the playoffs. I don't know if it actually would play it like that, but it'd be kind of crazy to see.
I do think that they want to play. I mean, obviously they don't have bigs to play in a confident way. So, going small, playing with pace, I think that it would be what they would try to do. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it working, but yeah.
I mean, they also got packed up by Utah the other day. It's possible that they like go in a like fall in the gutter here if Luka doesn't like get healthy quickly.
I love to see it. But yeah, I don't want to dwell on them too much. And actually, I guess I want to give us one more chance. Any parting shots we have before we wrap up the show? Will, Grace?
Oh man, the only thing I really wanted to get to was just that whole Lakers thing about how I want to destroy them. But
same. No, I'm happy. We can talk
yeah.
about that. I hate the Lakers. The joy I would take in, Luka, Jokic.
You want to knock them out again?
At the same time that, we get to knock them out again for a third time. Is this 3 times or
I don't know if I want.
I lost track.
I don't know if I want Murray and Jokic having more nights in LA this year, guys.
I think it'll be all right. It'll be all right. I feel good about that. Fuck the Lakers.
I thought LeBron was going to ask for a trade and go somewhere else immediately after that trade because I was like, why would you stay there? You're not going to win anything, and you're all about winning championships. Well, supposedly, I guess that's up
but his son's there.
Well, now he has 3 sons there.
Yeah. Well, his son would get sent away too.
Oh, he's package deal. Gotcha.
Yeah. That's all for me. Thanks for having me on. That's my other parting thought.
Okay.
Of course. Always happy to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming. Grace, how about you? Hippie about the Eastern Conference or the bottom of the West? Or...
Ew. No, I don't want to talk about the Eastern Conference. Even like my Orlando Magic have been so disappointing this season.
Ooh.
Even though you could see so much of it.
They're like an athletic car crash.
That's what every game feels like. Yeah. No. The Nuggets have been the most interesting team in the Western Conference this season. And I say that not just as a fan, but as a student of the team, if you will.
Yeah.
Because they have, changed so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like after the All-Star break. Because that's I feel like I don't know. It's not like I was going to say, I feel like it should be a bigger story, and it kind of has been throughout the season, right? Like we've definitely talked about what the coverage of the team has been like also since the beginning of the season, where they were hopefully a different team than they will be, certainly than they have been recently. And there's a lot of moving parts. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how they're able to put everything together and hopefully figure out their best punch.
Right.
Or which of their, because they have a lot of really would be any a lot of other teams' best punches available. They just have to decide which one or 2 or 3 they're going to prioritize, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter, any for you? Maybe against a certain Southwestern fan base?
I don't know. I feel like it'd be in poor taste to wish poor bad things on the Suns right now. I just want to point out that it's All-Star weekend and the Phoenix Suns are under 500, and they're gonna, send they're gonna break the record for most amount of luxury tax payments made. So they are the most expensive NBA team of all time, and they might miss the playoffs.
See, everybody says the second
That's
name
a
for
team,
Embiid,
honestly. Like
doesn't
I'd
matter.
play them. I'd play them round one pretty happily.
Oh,
also.
I
For
just
sure.
didn't think
Yeah.
they'd
Any of
get
these
there.
like bad teams, the
Yeah.
Suns, the Kings.
Guys, I
the
can't
Warriors.
really remember who it was, but I think there was a Nuggets podcaster one time that said Devin Booker's a fraud. I don't know. Maybe you guys remember.
That was Bucket since '88.
Yeah, I think-
it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Oh man. Yeah, you've almost won the war completely on this one, so enjoy this stretch of victory.
they're
I'm
really
gonna have
the
to find somebody new to hate. They're gonna
Drake.
blow it up this summer, trade Durant and Booker, and it's gonna be weird. I'm gonna
always
have
hate
to
the
go back
Lakers.
to hating the Jazz if they draft Cooper Flag or something.
Just hate the Lakers. Just join me in hating the Lakers. It's really easy. I've
Yeah,
been here the whole time.
you have been. I like to move around.
Or join me with
no.
the OKC hate.
I'm an equal opportunity hater. I do hate OKC.
That's so untrue. That's so you cannot claim you're an equal opportunity hater. That's a lie. I've known you.
No,
too
you're
long.
right. I still hate the Lakers the most. It's true.
Your record says there's one team. I don't think you're done. I just don't think you're done. I'm sorry. We'll see.
I just have room in my heart for a lot of hate, Ray. I hate a lot of teams. Okay.
Nice.
Not like
Okay.
you hate Phoenix.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, it is. So it's kind of towards Rope's point. I'm really interested in into the idea of like what's Denver's best punches. So Mike's having his best year so far. Jamal.
Wait, can you
looking
put that up
he's-
again? I didn't see it.
Oh, does no one else think Jamal and MPJ would struggle scoring wise against OKC's defense, especially MPJ? I think Jamal and Mike are having their best. Well, Mike is having his best season, especially in being multifaceted enough that he's not just impacting the game from the 3-point line, even though, he is, but he's not always putting up 7 threes a night. But hey, sometimes, it's going his way. Jamal's coming into his own. I'm really interested in how they can integrate those things together. Like the 2-man game is very effective. When Jamal was out and Mike was more the second option, also very effective. Can they bring that like full circle? I would be really interested to see what that looks like, especially non-Jokic minutes. I think in the playoffs, Aaron Gordon at center, that's probably going to be a thing. Can they come through with something productive? I would love that. So it's something I'll be keeping an eye out for. Outside of that, if you made it this far, we really appreciate you listening. You can find us online. I feel like we all hate X, but we're still it's like a toxic relationship, maybe. I don't know. I'm at Ravon Hackshaw. Grace is at
Like
Aaron
Andy,
27.
it's bad for you, but you always want more.
Yeah.
At least, but candy tastes good. Like,
Yeah, but there's so many funny tweets and people going at each other. It's delicious.
I'm not. But I understand what you mean. Sometimes it's funny. That's fair. You can find Will at Will_D_Jones for movie. You also have a movie Twitter if you want to plug that one.
Yeah. That's at Will Movie Guy.
Cool. So when he
talk films
ODs, when he ODs on basketball takes and needs a step back, come talk
There we
films.
go.
Yeah. Peter's at Bucket since '88. I'm at Ravon Hackshaw. The podcast is at Four Corner Pod, and you can find Will and Grace at What Is in a Game. What's in a game?
Either
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. They're on
Of course.
YouTube. They're on podcast platforms, as are we. And hit us up. Throw us your takes. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for showing up in the show. And we'll talk to you soon.